So I know we've had some action go on recently in terms of a couple of big notable trades, which means that it shakes up the look a little bit of the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. So I felt like it was a good time to finally give you an update and kind of see how I think things could play out. And we're still even a few weeks away, so I reserve the right to change my mind. I reserve the right to change some or a lot of my mock drafts still. So keep that in mind. But if it's your first time checking me out, make sure you smash the subscribe button and follow me on Twitter, because I'll have plenty of draft takes coming up in the weeks to come. And then certainly want to follow me for the 3 days of the NFL Draft, because I'll have plenty to say at that time. And make sure you check out my scouting report. Some of you that follow me for years wanted me to do scouting reports again. I've started doing them. I've graded all the quarterbacks. Next up is going to be the wide receivers, so make sure you check out the quarterback ones. All right, so let's talk about this mock draft. It's a one-rounder again, all 32 picks in the description box below. Starting at number 1, sure seems safe to pick right now that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the guy for the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 1. This has been destined for months. It's felt that way. It's been billed that way, and I don't see any reason to think it'll be any different than that at this point. I think momentum in recent weeks has built to the Jets picking Zach Wilson at 2, and I want to be clear here. Zach Wilson has top 5, 7 quarterback potential in terms of in the game. Like, he could be a top 5 to 7 guy. He has elite traits. He has elite potential. He's my QB1 in this draft. Sam Darnold does not have that level of upside. He does not have those traits. So if you're taking a quarterback, it needs to be Zach Wilson. Like, you cannot bungle this and think we're just going to build around Sam Darnold, because even with that, the value is not necessarily there. At other positions, or even like trading back, like, you have to be realistic. Yeah, it kind of sucks for Darnold, and he wasn't given the best opportunity, and he had to deal with two years of Gase. Like, it was a self-inflicted wound by the Jets organization, but you have a chance to get it right. You have a new general manager, you have a new head coach. You got to give him a guy with that type of big-time upside. And Zach Wilson seems like he'd be perfect for that New York market. Like, he feels like he'd bring you the most sizzle and pop at that position since Broadway Joe. You have to go with him at 2. Where it gets really interesting is San Francisco at 3. Is it Justin Fields? Is it Trey Lance? Is it Mac Jones? And you'll see some people making arguments, and potentially in some cases compelling arguments, for any of those 3 guys being the one at 3. Now, here's what I'll say. As far as the Justin Fields part, maybe it's a bias of me not being as high on him as others. I can't imagine that he's the guy that you're trading up for at 3. I just can't. Now, it could be because you thought, hey, we run the risk of Atlanta taking him at 4, and we want to get him, so we have to trade up high if we got to go get him. Okay, maybe. But I would have to imagine right now it comes down to Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Now, the Mac Jones piece is compelling because I compared him on the lower end to Kirk Cousins, but on the higher end to Matt Ryan. And those are both quarterbacks that worked with Kyle Shanahan in the past. Those are both quarterbacks that enjoyed some success with Kyle Shanahan, and specifically with Matt Ryan. He enjoyed some of his best years playing with Kyle Shanahan as a play caller and offensive coordinator. And as much as you might look at Mac Jones and say, he doesn't possess those special physical traits, he doesn't have a great arm in terms of arm strength, he's not a great athlete, like, is that really the guy you give all that up to trade up to that spot to get? In theory, no. But if you think he's a Matt Ryan type, are you telling me you wouldn't want to take a Matt Ryan if you had the chance to do so at the 3rd pick? You know what I mean? And if you feel like he's the guy that's best suited for your offense and what you do, then you take him and you don't apologize for that. And I would certainly make an argument that Mac Jones in San Francisco would have the chance to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, because he'd be in the best possible situation out of all the young quarterbacks year 1, and he'd be potentially in a winning team. Like, you could win 10-plus games with Mac Jones. Now, personally, my pick would be Trey Lance, because I'm not giving up the bounty of picks that the 49ers did, the draft capital and future drafts that they did, to get a guy with limited physical upside and pop. Like, Trey Lance has the most physical upside and pop out of any quarterback in this draft class. I can give you say Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, I'm going to laugh in your fucking face. It's Trey Lance has the most physical upside out of any quarterback in this draft. He's potentially the rawest, although I would dispute that slightly. But the reality is it might still take him a little time to develop and become the guy that he's going to be. But for me, my money, it should be him. That said, in this scenario, I said maybe the 49ers value Mac Jones, and they said we want to take no chances and make sure we take him. And I've got them taking him at 3. Then you look at Atlanta at 4. Hard to figure out, like, regardless, independent of anything involving Matt Ryan's contract, restructuring, anything like that, like, are they going to take a quarterback that might not play for them for a year or two? I don't know. And I could certainly see Arthur Blank being incredibly loyal to a guy like Matt Ryan and wanting to allow Matt Ryan to continue to play for them and play at a high level. So he might be more focused on building around him. So if you're not able to trade back, then taking a guy like Kyle Pitts makes a world of sense. Get you another athletic playmaker that Matt Ryan could throw to, a guy that could create all types of mismatches and match up problems at the tight end position. You know, he might be the pick there. I've got one trade where Carolina's going up from 8 to 5 here, so Carolina can get their hands on Trey Lance. Like, once the 49ers traded up to 3, like, it made the Carolina Panthers losers. They must come out of this first round with the quarterback. Whatever one of the two guys they prefer that isn't taken 1, 2, or 3, no matter what they have to take. And I'm sorry, but if Atlanta passes on a quarterback at 4, and you're sitting there and you've got a guy like Trey Lance is on the board at 5, Carolina has to go up to Cincinnati's pick at 5. They have to. You cannot risk that Miami might have a change of heart, or that Detroit might take him in front of you, or that somebody else at that point in time might not jump ahead of you to take him, like a New England, a Washington, a Chicago. Like, you don't have a choice. You have to take a quarterback. Now, if I'm the Panthers and I say, hey, I moved up from 8 to 5 and in the process gave up a second-round pick this year to go up 3 spots to get the potential franchise quarterback for the next 12, 15 years, I ain't complaining about that shit, but they must absolutely do that. Now, you look at 6 and you say, you've got him taking Sewell? Really? Yeah. Miami needs to take an offensive player to help Tua, but it doesn't mean it has to be a wide receiver. Like, maybe they envision Sewell of having more upside and more certainty at his position compared to some of the other wide receivers. And I don't know that I fundamentally agree or disagree with that position. I'm just saying. Where it gets interesting for those perceived top 3 wide receivers in this draft, with Jaylen Waddle and Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith, is I'd expect that once one of them gets drafted, the other 2 get drafted in pretty close order behind them. There will be a little bit of a run there, but where does that run begin? Does it truly begin in the top 5, or does it begin at 6, or does it begin, somewhere between 7 to 12? Like, I personally would be a little surprised if all 3 of them weren't drafted by 12, but that's not a guarantee of it. For the Bears fans out there wondering what I've got the Bears doing, well, you look at pick 20, I've got them taking Teven Jenkins, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma State. I'm starting to wonder, there's been more buzz about him, more talk about him. I'm starting to wonder if he would even potentially be there at 20. But when you look at him, like, no matter what, the Bears have to upgrade their offense. And when I look at the value of what you got at the offensive line versus wide receiver, which would be the 2 obvious key needs on the offense that's not a quarterback, and you look at quarterback too, like you were saying, if the Bears didn't trade up, if they didn't peel back, if they stayed there at 20 and took best player available on the offensive side of the ball, it very well might be Teven Jenkins if he even makes it there. But if you're going to really, truly go with Dalton Foles, oh my God, then you have to sit there and you have to go and improve the pass protection in front of him, period. So Jenkins would make a lot of sense at that point. It could be that they value a receiver there at 20, but who's the receiver that you would take, assuming the top 3 guys are there? You know what I mean? Like, what I hope they don't do would be a really dumb thing to do, but I could also potentially see them doing is, since they released Kyle Fuller, I could see them totally drafting a corner like a Caleb Farley or, let's say, a Jaycee Horn if one of those 2 happen to be on the board at 20. I could see them saying, well, look at the value and the importance of the position and we'll take them. It'd be really dumb and really counterproductive, but I could totally see that being something that this dumb team would do. I could also see that the Bears might potentially still try to panic move and make a big trade up and go get whatever quarterback is left somewhere in the top 10. I think that's possible. I'm not excited about that possibility. I don't know that I want that, but certainly a thing. Now, if we start talking about Trey Lance is there at pick 9 or 10 for some damn reason, then at that point in time, fuck everything I've said about Ryan Pace in the past. Go trade up for Trey fucking Lance. Yeah! I almost at this point would say, that's the only hope you got. But Anyways, you guys can peep out my mock draft. Let me know what you think about it. I will have mock drafts up the next few weeks as we get closer and closer to this year's NFL draft, so stay tuned.